everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ashley. I am a homeschooling mom to 3 kids and I share our homeschooling journey here on YouTube. I've been sharing for around 1.5 years now, and so if you're interested in learning about different curriculum, different tips, then make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Today's video, I'm going to be discussing some tips I have, some strategies for homeschooling multiple kids at different age levels. So I have 3 kids, a 5th grade daughter, a 3rd grade daughter, and then my son who is just starting pre-K. So I have like the older elementary, almost middle school, the kind of mid-elementary, and then, you know, the younger who really hasn't even started like standard school yet. So my experience is going to be based on those age levels. We started homeschooling 3 years ago, so I can't speak to like homeschool like an infant. I did have like a young toddler when we started homeschooling, but it's just a little bit different of an experience. We did also have my oldest daughter in public school for a couple years, so we also have that experience as well. So I'm going to kind of just share some of my thoughts, some tips. I kind of have different categories of how I recommend dealing with multiple ages in your homeschool. All right, so let's get started. So today's video is sponsored by Zookeeper. I've worked with Zookeeper pretty much since I started homeschooling. I absolutely love their language arts program. It is one of my tips for dealing with multiple age levels. I'm going to show you a little bit more of their program soon, but I just wanted to say thank you to Zookeeper. So the first thing when you're dealing with multiple kids at multiple age levels is you need to establish some sort of routine. Now, you don't have to be like on a time routine, like at 10 a.m. we do math. We're not that scheduled, but we do have like a routine, I would say, where we know which days of the week we do school. We have kind of the same time blocks that we do school, and we kind of have the same flow. Now, I have like an other kind of caveat. I also work full-time, so that is also different. So I'm going to try to kind of keep that mindset out of it and pretend that I don't work full-time. So these tips can really apply to anyone. So establishing our routine, this can be anything from your kids once they wake up, they start on independent work. You can make that your routine where your kids know these workbooks are their independent work. They know they need to do a couple pages of them, and that allows them to just get started on their own. Or you can start your routine every day with kind of some family subjects where everyone gathers around and teach a lesson, maybe a unit study, or just simply reading a book, maybe some Bible study, something that you want all of your kids to be a part of. So establishing that routine of whether do you start your school days together or do you have your kids starting more independently on like their independent activity or independent curriculums. In this routine, you also need to be flexible. Maybe one kid wakes up not feeling well, and so don't let one kid kind of alter your routine, I would say. So have some backup plans. You know, if one of my kids isn't feeling well, they stay in their room and the other kids can still continue on with their school day. It's bound to happen where they're not always all sick at the same time. It's normally kind of like a domino effect in our house, so I assume the other kids would get sick, so we kind of just work through it as we need to. Now that works better with their individual curriculums. If we have like a group subject, then I will kind of need to adjust that. So being a parent of multiple kids, I think you already know that you need to be flexible, but just keep that in mind with your homeschool as well. Now let's talk about curriculum and resources. So you can do this a multitude of ways. As far as curriculum, you could choose a curriculum that works for your entire family, and you could have one curriculum and you could do it together, and that works great for some families. So like Gather Round, you could use their units as your full curriculum except for math and teach all of your kids at all age levels at once. So that would be a really easy route to do, because you're just teaching one thing, or you're doing one main kind of role of teaching, and then each of your individual kids at their age levels has like corresponding age appropriate work that they need. You can have everything separate you can use curriculum that is tailored to each grade. Now, if each of those individual grades requires teaching, I have 3 kids, so that means I'd be required to teach 3 different age levels and groups of subjects, right? Because there's math, reading, history, language arts, science. So that is a lot of work on a parent. So for me, I like to choose, when I'm looking at age-specific curriculum that can help me teach. So we use like Saxon math with Nicole the math lady. That means I don't need to teach math. My kids are at different age levels in math, and so that helps me not have to teach 3 different types of math. So finding a curriculum that supports you as a homeschool parent but also teacher, so you're not, overextending yourself. So what you'll see me do in my homeschool is we have kind of a mixture of curriculum that we can do all together, and we have our individual studies. And then those individual studies, I do use a lot of curriculum that I have assistants teaching in, so I'm not just all day long teaching. Now, even if I did not work full-time, I still think that that would be a very difficult to do. You're one person, multiply that by how many kids and subjects they need to do. Don't be afraid to get that extra assistance where you need it if it works for your family. Now, speaking to that, like my pre-K-er, I would never expect to just put him like on a computer or in front of a TV and expect him to learn a lesson. I don't think younger kids can learn that way. So he is someone that I will sit down and do a math lesson with. However, the younger they are, the less time their lessons take. So his math lesson takes 10 minutes to complete. So me focusing on his math for 10 minutes is completely different than carving out 30 minutes to an hour for each of my daughter's lessons. So the older grades get longer in lessons, but those are the ones where I think you can find support or curriculum. Things like reading books and kind of, you've probably heard of like the morning basket term, where it's books, it's games, it's different resources that really cater to all ages. That's always a fun time. So if we're reading a science book and we're learning about the ocean, all of my kids are interested in that, and so that is something that we all do together. I also think that there's a level of having your kids being able to maybe sit together, but maybe you're directly talking to one of your kids while the other 2 are working on something. That's something that I've really practiced with my kids, where my 2 older daughters can do their handwriting practice. They each have their own handwriting workbooks, and they know what to do, so they can work through that while I'm doing that math lesson with my son, his coloring, his little science or reading lessons. While they're completing a task, I can still be with them all together at our homeschool table, but I'm focusing on one individual child. Same thing for my pre-K-er. There may be a time where I give him a coloring page where he needs to color certain things, certain colors. I go over that and explain that, and he can sit there and work on that while now I'm teaching a science lesson to his sisters. So not every kid is going to be able to focus in that type of environment, but that is something I've been working on with all of my kids, especially my pre-K-er, since he's the youngest and he needs the most kind of practice with focusing, where we do sit together, but I'm focusing attention on others and expecting the other kids to kind of work on something independently. Now, another thing, and we struggled a lot with this last homeschool year, especially with my 2 daughters, they were just very off time-wise on schoolwork, where my older daughter would be spending, like, we'll say an hour to 2 hours additional on schoolwork compared to my other daughter. Now, they're at different grades and age levels, so that is expected, but it's not always fair for one kid to be playing and the other one sitting there doing schoolwork. It can be distracting, it could be discouraging. So that is really where Night Zookeeper fit into our homeschool, was really for kind of my younger kids to have something additional to work on, but it didn't seem as schoolwork-ish, for those moans and groans of kids that don't want to do any schoolwork. Night Zookeeper is a really fun, interactive, engaging online program for language arts. So in this program, your kids have games they can play, they have like challenges, they have writing activities. It really focuses on the aspect of creative writing. This is something that my kid can do on their own, right? So when I'm trying to either work with another kid directly or a kid just needs something extra to go work on, that is where I have them go log into their Night Zookeeper account and I'll set like 30 minutes, go on there. Some days they will play games, or as they think are just really fun games, but all the games do have some element of learning. A lot of the games I see focus on like vocabulary and spelling and building good writing habits, and so they'll go and log on, and that has been a very independent activity. So that's very low monitoring for me. I know they're learning on it, but then I also know they're having a really good fun time with it also. And then another thing I like is it is kind of reinforcing and practicing some skills. So there is a huge like creative writing aspect to Night Zookeeper, where in the beginning, there's a lot of prompt writing where it will just ask your child questions, kind of like a chat or like a text message. Like they'll ask a question, your child will respond, and the conversation keeps going as they're like writing a paper. So I really like that aspect of it. There is just some like creative writing assignments where it kind of gives like a checklist of what needs to be completed in the writing and kind of like an idea for the writing. And as my kids have gotten older, they've been able to really jump into that. So they can submit different writing pieces. And one of my favorite things to Night Zookeeper is they have staff that reviews these writing assignments. So when your child submits a writing assignment, someone from Night Zookeeper is going to review that in a couple days and provide feedback. So I love that because that kind of takes that off my plate. Like I don't want to just tell my kid to go do something and then not really review what they're doing. Someone at Night Zookeeper is there to help you and take care of that. And so I really enjoy that as a parent, as a busy mom. And then my daughter likes it too. Their feedback is always super encouraging and like inspiring. And so my kids like seeing that feedback, logging on and writing. So if you need kind of a buffer in your homeschool, that extra level of support that you may need as a teacher, some extra language arts practice, definitely give Night Zookeeper a try. I do have a link down below that will give you a free 7-day trial, so at least give it a shot. And then if you end up loving Night Zookeeper like us, there is a chance, or the offer in that link is to get 50% off your annual subscription. So use that link down below, give Night Zookeeper a chance, let it help you out. So other ways that I recommend with multiple kids, there really does need to be a source of independence. This is something that I honestly think my oldest daughter had because she was in public school. When there's 20 to 30 kids in a classroom, there does need to be a little independence when they have homework assignments, when they have projects. So thankfully my oldest really had that sense of independence, and my middle daughter kind of just followed through with that as well. Things that helped create independence when they were a little bit younger are checklists, daily checklists. This needs to get done today, and I would break it down by school assignments and with chores. I'm very heavy on chores as well with my kids, and independence, what do you know that they can do on their own, and starting small. So like handwriting is very simple, I think, because really a lot of that is they're just copying what's in their book. I've seen tons of handwriting curriculums and very few require a lot of teacher attention. So handwriting is one. If you haven't started that independence with your kids, let them work on handwriting on their own. It doesn't mean you're not there for help. You're not there to check it at the end. It's just step away, let them work on it. Coloring when they're very young, give them a direction and then let them do it. Let them try. They're not always going to do it 100% right, but it's giving that space for them to learn and you to learn to kind of see what else could be done to help them. So when we first started homeschooling, I worked out of the home. And so I had help at my house. I had babysitters, I had grandparents that would be here with them, but I wanted them to be in a routine, and checklists were really huge because I wouldn't physically be here and I wouldn't be calling and checking on them all day. And so my kids really did learn, these are the things we can do without mom. And that, just because I was working and not home, that can be in any house. Create a checklist. What can your kids do without mom? And that's something, you know, block it off. This is what you need to do without me as far as schoolwork. Here's chores you need to do without me. And then this is when we'll do stuff together. You know, set those expectations. I was always very clear with my kids, like, when are we going to do this? When is this expected? You know, they used to be allowed, if they got all their independent stuff done, their chores, then they were allowed free time. They knew when I got home from work, we would have to jump back into school for like our group subjects. And that still happens to today. I don't leave the home anymore like I used to for work, but there are times where I need to establish, like, this is what's going to happen today. You are going to do these on your own. We're going to do this together, and letting them be able to understand, like, what are the expectations of the day. So being very transparent with your kids, I think, is important too. It's kind of building that trust, building those expectations. Nobody wants to be surprised, right? Like, a kid doesn't want to do some independent reading and some worksheets and then think they're done for school for the day, and then you try to call them back into 2 hours of some group activities. You have to be very realistic in what you're telling your kids your days are going to be like. So I think that covers a lot of, like, in your actual homeschool days, right? So choosing curriculum that caters to how you want it to be. Do you want group subjects? Do you want individual curriculum? Do you want a mixture like we do? Is that individual curriculum going to be a burden on you, or are you using resources that help you? Like, we use, you know, math and language arts where my kids are taught lessons by somebody else. Or do you need those extra resources like Night Zookeeper that can kind of take one child out of the aspect and you're getting feedback on the work they're doing. So that's kind of in the homeschool, building independence, having a routine, having checklists, really knowing which each kid is responsible for. And then outside of that, with multiple kids, I think it's really important for siblings to have a very good relationship and bond. And so I love that my kids are at all different age levels, but they spend a lot of their time together, and they're very close. They play a lot together, even with those various age levels, where I think when kids are in public school, they get very separated from their siblings. And so as much as I love the sibling bond, I do think it's important for kids to have their own friend groups as well, or own activities with their own age levels away from their siblings. So there's things like co-ops, so you can join co-op groups where they're just around other kids, maybe a week or more, depending on, you know, the co-ops in your area, even down to just a small homeschool group. If you go on Facebook and search for your city or your county in a homeschool group, I'm sure you'll find something. Just getting them around other kids than their siblings is good. There's also, you know, activities or sports, you know, your local, like, youth, YMCA, or just clubs or activities, having them in something that they really enjoy doing around their age level kids also kind of helps. Having some, I think, independence from their siblings, so they can find an activity they like on their own, they can find a friend they like on their own, and kind of have that ownness to them. But at the end of the day, you know, sibling relationships, I think, are more important, but having that also think, getting them out of the house, getting them outside. I know when kids are in bad moods sometimes, just stepping outside is, and then too, if you do end up joining like a co-op and they teach classes, you know, that's more off your plate, worrying about what you have to teach to all of your kids. So use the resources, don't feel like you have to do everything, being flexible with multiple kids, and, you know, just adjusting a little bit to each one of your individual kids. I think you'll be successful in all of that. So if you have any questions or other things or tips you want to know about homeschooling multiple kids at different age levels, feel free to leave those down below in the comments. Don't forget, I have that free 7-day trial of Night Zookeeper and 50% off your entire annual subscription if you choose to join. So don't forget to click that link down below. Thanks so much for watching today's video, supporting my channel. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.